My parents have always had this habit of making Sunday dinner feel like a ritual. Not the kind steeped in candles and reverence, but something quieter. A practiced familiarity that filled the house. It was all there. The smell of roasted chicken, my mom's overly salted green beans, the clinking of mismatched forks against chipped plates, and the light hum of my dad's jazz playlist spilling out of his old speaker in the corner of the dining room. I used to find comfort in it, maybe even pride. I'd bring Allison here, and she fit so seamlessly into the rhythm of it all. My mom loved her. My dad pretended not to but always poured her the better wine. In the early years, I caught him smiling at her when she wasn't looking. That kind of silent approval meant something to me. This Sunday should have been no different. On the surface, it wasn't. Allison wore the blue dress she knew my mom liked. She brought dessert, a box tiramisu she swore was homemade. We'd been late, but not suspiciously so. Traffic, she said, even though it was Sunday and the roads were clear. I hadn't pressed it. I rarely did. Halfway through the meal, while my mom was ranting about their neighbor's terrible lawn ornaments and my dad chuckled like he'd heard it 1,000 times. Because he had. Allison reached for her wine and knocked her phone off her lap. It fell face up, screen lit, a fresh iPhone with a display bright enough to catch my eye from across the table. I don't know why I looked. Habit, maybe. Reflex. Or maybe somewhere deeper, my mind had already learned to hunt for things it didn't want to find. The screen wasn't locked. The photo app was open. A single image stared back at me, just for a moment. But that moment was long enough. Allison, sitting in a dimly lit wine bar I didn't recognize. Low lights, a flicker of candles, deep red tones, and a pair of glasses between her and a man. A man I didn't know. Mid-30s, maybe. Clean cut. Close enough to her that their shoulders touched, even though there was space on either side of the booth. Her expression was soft, relaxed, that kind of laugh smile she used to reserve for the early days, when everything between us was still unfolding, still exciting. The timestamp at the top read 2:14 p.m. Today. Not yesterday. Not last week. Not 5 years ago like the smile suggested. Today. She scooped it up quickly, brushing it off with a smoothness I'd seen before, when she forgot something or needed to pivot mid-conversation. She didn't flinch, didn't fumble. "Oh," she said, slipping the phone into her purse, screen down. "That's old. Work thing. PR day with one of the new guys. You know how it is. Social content." She didn't look at me when she said it. Just sipped her wine and returned to my mom's story about retirement plans and the neighbor's hideous pink flamingos. I didn't respond, didn't ask. I sat there, chewing dry chicken and smiling like everything was fine. I nodded at the right moments. I even laughed when my sister mentioned her kid accidentally FaceTimed her ex from the toilet. But something inside me had already shifted. It wasn't the photo itself, not entirely. It was the ease with which she lied. After dessert, Allison excused herself to the bathroom. I walked into the kitchen, where my dad was rinsing plates like he always did, humming off-key to Coltrane. He handed me a dish towel and said something about the Dodgers blowing another lead. I nodded, didn't say much. My mind wasn't in the room anymore. By the time we said our goodbyes and Allison kissed my mom on the cheek, thanked her for the food, and told my dad to stop pretending to hate her favorite wine, I had already made the decision. I drove us home. She scrolled on her phone the entire ride, face lit by the glow of her screen, not once turning it in my direction. I noticed the lock screen had changed again. Another photo, another angle. Not of us. It hadn't been us for a long time. She made small talk about the food, the pie being too sweet, my mom needing to switch to almond milk. She asked if I could pick up eggs in the morning. Said she might be home late tomorrow. Client dinner. I nodded, careful not to break the illusion. Back at the house, I parked in the driveway, left the engine running a few seconds longer than usual. She got out, stretched, and headed inside. I stayed behind, fingers gripping the steering wheel harder than I realized until I saw the indents left in the leather. When I finally stepped inside, she was already halfway up the stairs, calling over her shoulder about loading the dishwasher later. I stood in the entryway, letting the quiet settle. Then I grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door. I didn't pack a bag. Didn't leave a note. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse her. I just walked out. Out of the house. Out of the silence. Out of the version of me that kept explaining away the things I already knew. That night, I stayed at a hotel near the airport not because I was flying anywhere, but because I needed a room that didn't feel like mine. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to remember the last time Allison and I had gone out on a weekday. Or even really talked, without one of us checking a notification mid-sentence. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise. No TV. No music. Just the faint humming of the AC unit and the buzz of 1,000 questions forming lines in my mind, waiting to be asked. But I didn't ask them. I'd already heard the answers. I just hadn't wanted to listen. The morning after I left, I didn't go home. I didn't call, didn't text. I drove aimlessly through parts of the city I hadn't seen in years, old neighborhoods, forgotten diners, parking lots where I used to waste time before I had a schedule to keep. It was strange how calm I felt. No rage. No heartbreak that made me want to scream. Just this low, steady hum in my chest like a switch had finally been flipped. I checked into a small extended-stay motel just off the freeway. It was quiet, anonymous. There was a kitchenette with a crooked microwave, a television I never turned on, and a stiff mattress that made my back ache by morning. Still, it was exactly what I needed, something temporary. Unattached. The longer I sat with the silence, the more the past came into focus. Not all at once. Just little flashes. I remembered the first time Allison changed the password on her phone. It was a Sunday morning, maybe 6 months back. She was in the kitchen making coffee and I went to check the time on her phone like I usually did. It was locked. I tried the old code and it buzzed twice wrong. I asked about it and she laughed. Oh, I updated it for security. You know how those hacks happen. She said she'd tell me the new one but never did. And I let it slide. Another time she asked me to pick up dry cleaning she swore she'd dropped off for us both. When I got there, they only had one dress. A black one I hadn't seen before. Lacy, new. It still had the tag sewn into the hem. When I brought it home and asked where it came from, she shrugged and said, I bought it for your company holiday party. We never went. Things like that. Small, almost ignorable. And I did ignore them, chalked it all up to busy lives, miscommunications, a million little things that didn't seem worth the argument. Looking back, I realize now I wasn't confused. I was in denial. She used to take calls in front of me. Work stuff, friends, family, whoever. Somewhere along the line, that stopped. First, she stepped into the hallway. Then she started taking her phone out to the porch or the car. Just getting some air, she'd say. Her texts became short. One-word replies. Or two perfectly written ones. Capitalized, punctuated, sterile. Like someone trying not to leave a trace. And then there was the physical distance. It crept in slowly. I don't remember the last time she reached for my hand just to hold it. I'd come up behind her at the sink, wrap my arms around her waist, and she'd lean away, saying she needed to finish loading the dishes. Always a reason. Always something else to do. Her lingerie drawer changed, too. I noticed it one afternoon when I was looking for batteries in our dresser. New sets. Bold colors. Tags gone. But I hadn't seen her wear any of them. Not once. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was being paranoid. But it wasn't paranoia. It was pattern recognition. One night, weeks before the dinner at my parents', I reached for her laptop on the couch. She was in the kitchen and I wanted to Google something. Harmless. Her reaction when she saw me holding it? Immediate. Sharp. Hey, that's got work stuff on it. Just use yours, okay? It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Like a warning disguised as a suggestion. I set it down. Smiled. Said nothing. But I remembered. I started writing things down in a notebook I kept in the glove box of my car. Just little moments. Phone call durations. Excuses that didn't match. Places she said she was going. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, just that it felt better to put it on paper than let it swirl in my head. The book filled fast. She began working later. Almost always on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Meetings, she said. Team dinners. Corporate bonding, she joked once. The first Tuesday after I left, I parked across from her office around 4:45 p.m. Her building had a glass lobby and I sat there, drink in hand, watching. People filtered out in clumps. A few in pairs. Then came Allison, alone at first. She stood near the edge of the lot, looking down at her phone. Then a man walked up behind her. I didn't recognize him, not at first. Short beard, button-down shirt. Comfortable around her. She turned toward him, smiled. They stood close. Too close. And then, casually, like it was nothing at all, he put a hand on the small of her back and they walked off toward the side exit. No dinner meeting. No team. Just the two of them. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I already had my answer. That night, I went back to the motel and dug through our old electronics. I remembered we had an iPad she barely touched after upgrading her phone. I'd set it up for her, linked her iCloud. I charged it up and waited. It didn't take long. Photos started syncing. Messages, too. I watched the cloud rebuild itself like a puzzle snapping together. A few text previews from a name I didn't recognize, Brett. I clicked. And just like that, everything unraveled. I remember holding the iPad like it was radioactive. It felt ridiculous at first, sitting there in this beige motel room, knees pressed against a cheap laminate table, watching cloud sync dots flicker on a forgotten screen. But those tiny gray bubbles held everything I needed. Within minutes, photos started rolling in. At first, they looked ordinary, pictures of coffee cups, **TS of memes, a blurry selfie from her office. Then a burst of images, clearly from the same place, all taken in soft afternoon light. A hotel room. Modern. Clean. The kind with too many pillows and zero personality. Allison's reflection in a mirror, holding her phone, her face only half in frame. Her wearing a red sweater I remembered helping her pick out for a team-building retreat. One image showed her standing barefoot at the end of a bed, wine glass in hand. Another, her legs crossed on a gray comforter, a man's shoes visible at the edge of the **T. I zoomed in. The laces were untied. He wasn't posing. He didn't need to be. The metadata confirmed the date, 3 weeks ago. The same night she said she was at a book club meeting. She'd even sent me a group **T, her and a few women smiling on a couch with a bottle of white on the table. I'd believed her. But now I knew. That photo was staged. And the man? Brett? I didn't recognize him at first. But then the messages began filling in and there he was. His name saved in her contacts with no emoji, no nickname, just Brett. The texts weren't lurid or cartoonishly romantic. They were worse. They were familiar. Brett, missed you today. Wish we could have gotten lunch. Allison, me too. But Friday is soon. Brett, can't stop thinking about that last hour in the hotel. Still have your perfume on my jacket. Allison, haha good. My secret **P***N. My stomach turned. Another string, longer this time. Brett, you okay? You seemed quiet after dinner. Allison, just guilty, I guess. I hate lying to him. Brett, then don't think about it. You deserve to be happy too. Allison, I know. I wish I'd met you first. That one stayed with me. I read it a dozen times. Let it echo. I wish I'd met you first. Like our entire history had been an accident. A wrong turn. There were calendar invites too. Sent from her work email. Most titled vaguely, strategy session, offsite, or vendor dinner. Always during weeks she claimed to be overwhelmed. I started cross-referencing them with Uber receipts, checking the timestamps, comparing them to locations in the photo metadata. They lined up. Boutique hotels. Art district bars. Cafes we'd never been to together. She'd built a whole second life just out of reach. The flash drive I kept on my keychain, originally meant for work presentations, became something else entirely. I copied everything onto it. Every photo, every message, every digital breadcrumb she'd left behind. I didn't want to be reckless. I wanted clarity. Proof not just for me, but for what would come next. Later that night, I sat on the floor of the motel, surrounded by receipts, browser histories, **TS. I took my time. I cataloged everything. I even printed some of the photos. I laid them out in rows across the carpet like crime scene evidence. Not because I needed to see them again, but because I wanted to give the pain a shape. I wanted to stop wondering if I was overreacting. One photo in particular caught my attention. It was taken from behind, someone else holding the phone. Allison and Brett were on a barstool bench, their bodies close, her head tipped toward his. She was laughing at something. I could almost hear it. Her hand rested casually on his knee. Her wedding ring was off. That was the final thread. I looked down at my own ring. I hadn't taken it off. Not since the day we said I do in front of 80 people in my mother's backyard under an arch I built myself. I'd carved our initials into a cedar plank and nailed it above the arch that morning. Allison thought it was corny. But later that night, she kissed me and whispered, "You're everything I never thought I deserved." I kept that piece of wood. It's still in the garage. I opened the nightstand drawer in the motel and pulled out the small wooden box I'd made for our 5th anniversary, handcrafted from maple, lined with blue velvet. I'd built it for keepsakes. Letters. Notes. The ticket stubs from our first concert. Now it had a new purpose. I filled it carefully: photo prints, geolocation pings, scanned hotel bills, PDF exports of her calendar. I added the flash drive last. Then I closed the lid and locked it. It no longer held our history. Just the truth. The next morning I emailed a lawyer. Not to file. Not yet. Just to understand my options. Then I scheduled an appointment with a financial planner. I didn't want revenge. I wanted control. When Allison texted that afternoon to ask where I was, I didn't reply. When she called, I let it ring. By the time I returned to our house late that night, the air inside felt different. Not heavier. Not hostile. Just hollow. Allison was asleep. Or pretending to be. I didn't speak. Didn't ask questions. I just stood there for a while in the doorway of our bedroom, watching the rise and fall of her breathing, wondering how many nights like this she had come home from someone else's arms and crawled into mine. I turned off the light. Left the room. I didn't need to confront her. Not yet. There's a strange clarity that comes after the storm of discovery. Not relief, not even anger, really, but a cold, focused sense of direction. For the first time in months, I wasn't questioning myself. I wasn't trying to decode late-night texts or read meaning into half-hearted kisses. I knew what I'd seen. I knew what it meant. So I stopped talking. Stopped hinting. Stopped asking questions I already had the answers to. And instead, I began the slow, deliberate process of rearranging the board. Allison worked for a mid-sized consulting firm downtown, tight-lipped, status-driven, heavy on hierarchy. She was good at her job, at least in the way people who juggle clients and optics often are. Polished, quick, articulate. She'd risen fast. Too fast, maybe. But now I had what I needed to slow her down. I didn't want to blow up her life with a scream. I wanted it to feel like pressure in the walls, an unseen leak that made things gradually fall apart from the inside out. So I started with the emails. I'd gathered enough from her synced devices, *TS, attachments, dinner reservations booked under company cards, locations tagged during off-site strategy sessions that weren't sanctioned. I sorted everything into neat folders. Then I created an anonymous email. No identifiers. No fingerprints. And I sent it. Not to her boss. Not yet. To the internal legal team. Subject line: potential ethics violation, client boundaries, and off-the-record events. I included just enough to raise red flags. Photos of her and Brett dining during what was supposed to be a solo client dinner. A copy of a hotel receipt billed the same night as a company reimbursement request. Timestamped messages showing that Brett, technically a vendor, had direct access to her internal files. I didn't accuse. I implied. I asked a single question in the email: is this something leadership is aware of? Then I hit send. Nothing happened for a few days. I didn't expect it to. These things take time. Paper trails get traced, meetings get whispered about, and someone at the top starts to sweat. In the meantime, I watched. Allison still acted normal, almost overly so. She started texting more during the day, asking if I wanted to order Thai for dinner or if I had time to walk together this weekend. She was re-establishing contact. Sensing distance. Trying to close the gap with casual familiarity. I responded, but only with what was necessary. Sure, okay, whatever works. My goal wasn't to punish her. It was to become unreadable. Then the changes began. On Thursday morning, she woke up to an alert that her company email password had been reset for security reasons. She brushed it off as an IT thing. Said they were doing maintenance. By Friday, she'd been locked out of a few internal dashboards, client portals she used every day. She called IT. They told her it was a permissions audit. She didn't say much to me that night, but I noticed how quiet she was over dinner. That weekend, she didn't bring her laptop out once. The next week, her phone rang more than usual. She stepped outside to take calls. Came back looking tired. Unsettled. I could feel it happening, her grip on the story loosening. On Wednesday, I called our bank and began separating our accounts. Nothing drastic. Just incremental shifts, removing her as a secondary on mine, adjusting auto payments so they no longer hit our shared card, canceling the joint cloud storage we used for documents. I set up a new health insurance plan through my employer. Switched passwords on the home network. Logged her out of the car app. It all looked like technical updates on the surface. But it was control. Quiet, unassuming control. That Friday, I forwarded a second anonymous packet to HR. It was more direct this time, detailing the connection between her and Brett, flagged expenses, conflicts of interest, and internal scheduling discrepancies. Still no confrontation. Still no names. Just quiet architecture built on the back of truth. That evening, Allison came home early. She looked pale, like someone had unplugged the color from her face. Dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and stood in the kitchen, staring at her phone for a long time. I was on the couch reading. Did you notice anything weird with the internet today? She asked finally. Nope, I said. Didn't look up. She nodded, sat across from me and opened her laptop. 10 minutes later, she slammed it shut. I said nothing. That weekend, the client calls stopped coming. She told me she might take Monday off. Said she felt off balance. I nodded and offered to make breakfast. She smiled at that, hesitant, grateful. But I could see the storm behind her eyes. She was unraveling. And I just let it happen. By Sunday night, she'd pulled out a photo album from our early years. Started flipping through it slowly on the living room floor. Asked me if I remembered the trip to Portland where we got reined in for 3 days and ate nothing but ramen and hotel coffee. I nodded. Said it was a good trip. She smiled again. But there was panic beneath it now. That week, 3 of her client appointments got canceled. She said it was probably a reshuffling. I nodded again. By Wednesday, her name had disappeared from 2 internal mailing lists. Thursday morning, she didn't go into the office. She told me she had a headache, that she might take the week to get her bearings. And I said nothing. Just poured her coffee. That night, she hugged me before bed. For the first time in months, I didn't hug back. I think that's when she started to feel it, really feel it. The cold space. The distance. The precision of it all. It wasn't silence. It was strategy. It started with candles. That Monday night, I came home from work to find the dining room table set. Not just cleared, but set. Napkins folded, wine glasses dusted off, 2 unlit candles in silver holders that I didn't even know we still had. Allison was standing at the stove in an apron I hadn't seen in years, one with a faded floral pattern and a coffee stain near the hem. Thought I'd cook tonight, she said, a little too brightly. Like old times? I stood there in the doorway longer than I meant to, watching her stir something on the stovetop with too much enthusiasm. She was trying. That much was obvious. But trying for what, exactly? To fix something? To rewind? To erase? Hope you're hungry, she added. I nodded, walked past her, and washed my hands in silence. The meal wasn't bad. Chicken piccata, roasted potatoes, a side salad with her homemade vinaigrette, the one she used to make back when we still cooked together. She lit the candles during the first bite, and I pretended not to notice when she watched my face a little too closely, waiting for a reaction. Still remember how to do it, she said with a laugh. I forced a smile. Afterward, she cleared the plates and started humming while she loaded the dishwasher. The hum was familiar, almost automatic. A nervous tick disguised as calm. That night, she climbed into bed close. Closer than she had in months. Her leg brushed mine. I didn't move. She rested her head on my chest. And I let her. Not because I wanted to, but because it told me something. The pressure was working. Over the next few days, her sudden devotion accelerated. She started texting again during the day, little things, just thinking about you, or want to meet for lunch? She made French toast on Wednesday, pulled out a puzzle on Thursday. She brought home flowers Friday, yellow tulips. My favorite. Thought these might brighten the place up, she said, holding them out like an olive branch. I thanked her, put them in a vase, and set them beside the wooden box I'd hidden in plain sight atop my dresser. She didn't ask about it. Didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did and didn't want to know. That weekend, I caught her staring at me when she thought I wasn't looking, long glances from across the room while I scrolled through my phone, folded laundry, poured coffee. She had questions. But she didn't ask them. Instead, she doubled down. She framed an old photo of us, one from a trip to Santa Fe, right after we got married. She placed it on the mantel where a neutral landscape print used to be. I came home that night to find it propped carefully beside a lavender-scented candle and a matchbook from the lodge we stayed at on that same trip. Just wanted to make the place feel more like us again, she said. I nodded, said nothing. The next morning, she was already up and baking. Muffins, banana bread, something with cinnamon. She left one on a plate for me with a sticky note in her handwriting that read, "Good morning. Let's make today a good one." The problem was I wasn't angry anymore. Not confused. Not sad. I was empty. Every move she made now felt like someone desperately rearranging furniture on a sinking ship. But the ship had already hit the iceberg. The lights were still on, the orchestra still playing, but I was already in the lifeboat. And she didn't know it. I spent that week untangling the rest of our shared life. I called the insurance company and removed her from the dental plan. Not illegal. Just efficient. I went online and changed the beneficiary on my 401k. Updated my emergency contacts. Booked appointments with the bank and requested full documentation of our mortgage, investment accounts, car titles. I canceled the shared Spotify account. Stopped forwarding her packages. Started deleting our shared calendar events one by one. There were no more doctor's appointments to sync. No more dinner plans. No more pretend anniversaries of first dates that no longer felt worth celebrating. By Thursday, she brought home wine. A bottle we used to share back when we'd take late-night walks and drink on the back porch. This one's still your favorite, right? She asked, holding it up. Sure, I said, without looking up. She poured 2 glasses, handed me one, and raised hers like a toast. To new chapters, she said softly. I took a sip. Didn't say a word. She was trying to control the narrative again. Trying to rewrite history before it settled. That weekend, she suggested we drive up to the coast. Like a reset, she called it. Just you and me. I told her I had work. She didn't push back. Sunday evening, I removed her access to our joint vehicle app. 1 click. No alert. No explanation. I received a text from her 5 minutes later. Hey, I can't seem to get into the car app. Do you have the password? I left it unread. Later that night, she hovered near me on the couch. She was folding laundry, waiting. Looking for signs of forgiveness I didn't have to give. She sat beside me and reached for my hand. I let her hold it. But I didn't hold hers back. That was the moment I saw the light begin to flicker behind her eyes, just the faintest shift. Like she was beginning to understand that I wasn't fighting because I'd already won. Not in the triumphant sense. In the final sense. She started asking different questions after that. Are you okay? Is something going on? Are we good? I nodded when appropriate. Redirected. Kept the tone neutral. But I didn't say yes. Because we weren't. We were a painting she kept trying to fix with more brush strokes, not realizing the canvas was already shredded beneath the frame. Each desperate move she made was a quiet confession. Every home-cooked meal, every scented candle, every framed photo. They weren't acts of love. They were acts of panic. And panic, no matter how carefully dressed, always reveals itself eventually. She came home late again. Another meeting, though she didn't even bother naming it this time. She walked into the bedroom and froze. There, centered on her side of the bed, was the wooden box. No key. No explanation. Just the truth waiting. Inside, printed photos, hotel receipts, calendar logs, messages, geolocation pins. A flash drive. A note, you already know what this is. She sat there for hours, silent. The next morning, she moved like a ghost, forgot to make coffee, didn't speak. Her access to the company server was gone. Calendar wiped. Clients quiet. She hovered near me that night, but I gave her nothing. Just space and silence. She had no script for this version of me. No way back through it.